Rainbow Magic, Heather the Violet Fairy by Daisy Meadows. Message on a Kite. I can't believe this is the last day of our holiday, said Rachel Walker. She gazed up at her kite as it loosed in the clear blue sky. Kirsty Tate watched the purple kite soar above the field beside Mermaid Cottage. But we still have to find Heather, she reminded Rachel. Jack Frost's wicked spell had banished the 7 rainbow fairies to Rainspell Island, and without the rainbow fairies, Fairyland had no color. Kirsty and Rachel had already found Ruby, Amber, Saffron, Fern, Sky, and Easy. Now there was just Heather the Violet Fairy left to find. Rachel felt the kite tug on its string. She looked up. Suddenly, Violet and Silver flashed at the end of the kite's long tail. "Look, up there," she shouted. Kirsty shaded her eyes with her hand. "What is it? Do you think it's a fairy?" she asked. "I'm not sure," Rachel said, winding in the string. As the kite came bobbling toward them, Kirsty saw that a long piece of violet-colored ribbon was tied to its tail. She helped Rachel to untie the ribbon and smooth it out. "It has tiny silver writing on it," Rachel said. Kirsty crouched down to have a closer look. "It says, 'Follow me.'" Suddenly the ribbon was lifted up by the bridge. It fluttered across the field. "It must be leading us to Heather," Kirsty said, jumping up. Rachel rolled up her kite. "Mom, is it okay if we go exploring one last time?" she called. Mrs. Walker was talking to Kirsty's mom in the garden outside Mermaid Cottage. Kirsty's family was staying in Dolphin Cottage next door. "Of course, as long as Kirsty's mom agrees," Mrs. Walker replied. "It's fine with me," said Mrs. Tate. "But don't go far. The ferry leaves at 4 o'clock. "We'll have to hurry," Rachel whispered to Kirsty. They ran through the soft green grass following the ribbon, which bobbed and drifted on the bridge. Suddenly the ribbon whisked out of sight behind a thick hedge. What's going on? Where's it gone?" Kirsty wondered. "Through here," Rachel said, pulling aside one of the branches. Kirsty followed her friend as she squeezed through the hedge. Luckily, the leaves weren't too prickly. On the other side, they found a path and a gate. There was a sign on the gate in purple print saying, "Summer Fair Today." Kirsty and Rachel went through the gate and into a pretty garden. Stalls with selling candy floats and ice cream at the edge of a smooth green lawn. There were people everywhere, chatting and laughing. "Isn't this lovely?" Rachel said, looking round in surprise. A woman with a little girl holding a bunch of balloons smiled at her. Suddenly, Kirsty spotted the ribbon fluttering toward a merry-go-round at the far end of the lawn. It wrapped itself round the golden flagpole and danced in the breeze, little a tiny flag. "It must be leading us to the merry-go-round," Kirsty said. She grabbed her friend's hand, and they ran across the grass. The merry-go-round was as pretty as a fairy castle. Rachel stared with delight at the circle of wooden horses on their shiny golden poles. "Hello there," called a friendly voice behind them. "I'm Tom Goodfellow. Do you like my merry-go-round?" Rachel and Kirsty turned to see an old man with white hair and a kind smile. "Yes, it's lovely," Rachel said. Kirsty watched the wooden horses rising and falling in time to the cheerful music. "Look, Rachel," she gasped. "The horses are all rainbow colors." red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and indigo and violet. Rachel looked closer. Through the reeling horses, she could see that the pillar in the center of the merry-go-round was decorated with a picture of rainbow-colored horses galloping along a bridge. The merry-go-round slowed down and the music stopped. Mr. Goodfellow climbed up to help the rider dismount. All aboard for the next ride, he called. Lots more excited kids began to climb up on the horses. Mr. Goodfellow smiled down at Rachel and Kirsty. How about you two? He asked, his blue eyes twinkling. A magic ride. We'd love to have to go on your merry-go-round, said Kirsty. Quick, Rachel, there are 2 horses left. She scrambled up onto one of them. A name was painted in gold on the saddle. My horse is called Indigo Princess, Kirsty said, stroking the horse's shiny coat. Rachel climbed onto a pretty horse next to Kirsty's. It had a lilac-colored coat and a silver mane. Mine is called Prancing Violet. Hold tight, everyone, Mr. Goodfellow called out. The music started up and the merry-go-round began to turn. Prancing Violet and Indigo Princess swooped up and down on their painted poles. Rachel laughed out loud as the ride spun faster and faster. The garden flashed by and the flower and paths disappeared in a blur. The sounds of music and laughter faded away. Rachel's heart skipped a bit. Now the only horse she could see was Kirsty's horse, Indigo Princess, and she could feel prancing violets hovering, thudding on the ground beneath her. Kirsty felt a sea breeze tugging at her. Indigo Princess seemed to toss her head and kick up sand as she galloped along. Oh, Kirsty exclaimed, tasting salt spray on her lips. This is like riding a real horse. It's brilliant, Rachel agreed. She felt as if they were racing along a beach, just like the horses she had seen on the pillar in the middle of the merry-go-round. But before Rachel could say anything else, the horses began to slow down. The sandy beach faded away, and the sound of the music returned. The merry-go-round came to a smooth halt. Kirsty patted Indigo Princess's neck as she dismounted. Thanks for the special ride, she whispered. Then she turned to Rachel. This merry-go-round is definitely magical. But where is Heather the Violet Fairy? Rachel slid out of Prancing Violet's saddle and frowned. I don't know, she said. Then she heard the tiniest tinkling laugh. It was coming from behind her. Rachel turned around. There was nobody there, just a picture on the pillar in the middle of merry-go-round. Rachel blinked. There was a fairy riding the violet-colored horse. She wore a short, floaty purple dress, long purple stockings, and violet slippers. A few purple flowers were tucked behind one of her ears. Kirsty, Rachel whispered, pointing. I think I've just found Heather the Violet Fairy. The 7th fairy. My Goodfellow was helping the other riders off their horses. Quickly, Rachel and Kirsty squeezed past the other horses to look more closely at the pillar. Heather must be trapped in the painting, Rachel said. We have got to get her out, Kirsty said. Yes, Rachel agreed. But how, and what can we do with all these people here? Just then, almost as if he had heard them, Mr. Goodfellow clapped his hands. Follow me, everyone. The clowns are here. A cheer went up as everyone scrambled off the merry-go-round. All the other kids ran across the lawn toward the clowns, so Rachel and Kirsty left alone. Now's our chance, Kirsty said. Rachel had an idea. I know, let's use our magic bags, she said. Titania, the fairy queen, had given Kirsty and Rachel bags of special gifts to help them rescue the rainbow fairies. Of course, I've got mine here. Kirsty put her hand in her pocket and took out her magic bag. It was glowing with a soft golden light. When she opened it, a cloud of glitter fizzed up into the air. Kirsty slipped her hand into the bag. There was something there, long and slim like a pencil. It was a tiny golden paintbrush. Percy felt puzzled. What hell is that? We don't want to paint any more pictures. Maybe Heather knows what we can use it for, Rachel suggested. Amber told us how to help her when she was trapped in the shell. Good idea, Kirsty said, as she bent closer to the pillar. The tip of the brush touched the painted fairy's hand. Suddenly the whole picture glowed, and the fairy's tiny fingers moved. A single violet-scented petal floated down from the picture. Look, Rachel gasped. The brush is working some magic on the painting, Kirsty whispered. She began to stroke the brush all round the outline of the fairy. At first nothing seemed to happen. Then the picture glowed even brighter. The fairy shivered. That tinkles, she said with a silvery laugh. The magic brush had painted Heather back to life. Rachel checked that no one was watching them. Then, with Kirsty's last stroke, the fairy sprang out of the painting, her wings flashing like jewels. Purple fairy dust shot everywhere, turning into violet, scented blossoms that floated around her. Thank you much for rescuing me, said Heather, hovering in front of them. She held a purple wand, tipped with silver. I'm Heather, the Violet Fairy. Who are you? Do you know where my rainbow sisters are? I'm Rachel, and this is Kirsty, said Rachel. Your sisters are all safe in the pot of the end of the rainbow. Hooray! Heather did a twirl of delight, scattering violet sparkles around them. I can't wait to see them again. Kirsty held out her hand, and Heather landed gently on it. Kirsty held her out of view until they had run through the garden, past all the people watching the clowns. They ran out of the gate, and down the path they led to the wood. Deep inside the wood was a peaceful glade with a willow tree on one side. The pot at the end of the rainbow was hidden under its trailing branches. As soon as Rachel and Kirsty reached the clearing, there was a shot from inside the pot. Izzy, the indigo fairy, jumped out. Heather, you're safe, she cried. Look, everybody, Rachel and Kirsty have found our missing sister. Saffron flew out of the pot on the back of a huge bumblebee, followed by the other rainbow fairies. The air flashed and fizzed with scented bubbles, flowers and leaves, stars, ink drops, and tiny butterflies. Bartram the frog footman hauled out from behind the pot, beaming from ear to ear on his broad green face. As the fairies flew up to hug and kiss Heather, her blossom-filled fairy dust mingled with theirs, and the scent of violets filled the clearing. We knew you were coming, said Amber the orange fairy, down the wing a cartwheel. I've been tingly with magic all morning. Rachel and Kirsty held hands and danced in a circle. They'd done it. They had found all 7 rainbow fairies. And who is this? Heather asked Saffron, the yellow fairy, reaching out to tinkle the queen bee under her chin. This is Queenie, said Saffron, kissing the bee fairy head. She rescued my wand after the goblins stole it. Ruby the red fairy wings sparkled as she fluttered down to land on Rachel's shoulder. Thank you, Rachel and Kirsty, she said. Your true fairy friends, a great fern, the green fairy, drifting onto Kirsty's hand, and now we're all together again. We must magic a rainbow to take us back to fairyland. Suddenly, Rachel heard a strange cracking sound. She spun round. The pond at the edge of the lake wasn't blue anymore. It was white and cloudy with ice. Rachel and Kirsty and the fairies stared at each other in alarm. Goblins! They cried. Sky the blue fairy shivered with fright and fluttered closer to Saffron and Queenie. Izzy's tiny teeth chattered. But it can't be. The sugar plum fairy kept them in the land of sweets, harvesting jelly beans. Just then a harsh croaking laugh rang. The bushes parted, and a tall bunny fairy walked into the glade, circling hung from his clothes, and there was frost on his white hair and eyebrows. It was Jack Frost. Fairy spell. So you are all together again. Jack Frost's angry voice sounded like icicles snapping. Yes, thanks to Rachel and Kirsty, Ruby declared bravely, and now we want to go home to Fairyland. Jack Frost gave a laugh like hailstones spattering against a window past. I shall never allow that, he told them, but before Jack Frost could point his evil finger, Ruby the red fairy flew high into the air. Come on, rainbow fairies, now that we're together again, all our rainbow magic powers have come back. This time we must try to stop him with a spell. Follow me, she called. Immediately, Izzy shot to her sister's side and turned to face Jack Frost with her hands on her hips and a determined look on her face. The other fairy sisters flew to join them, and they all lifted their wands chanting together. To protect the rainbow fairies all, make a magic raindrop wall. Kirsty held Rachel's hand, feeling very scared. Would the spell work? A rainbow-colored spray shot out of each wand, and shining wall of raindrops appeared. It hung like a waterfall between the fairies and Jack Frost. Rachel and Kirsty held their breath. It will take more than a few raindrops to stop me, Jack Frost hissed. He pointed one bony finger at the shimmering wall. At once the raindrops turned to ice. They dropped onto the frosty grass like tiny grass beads and shattered. All the fairies looked horrified. Saffron and Sky gave a sob of dismay, and Izzy clenched her fist. Fern, Amber, and Ruby held each other tightly. Heather hovered at one side, looking as if she was thinking hard. Rachel and Kirsty started in alarm as Jack Frost lifted his hand again, and Heather flew forward, waved her wand, and circled. To stop Jack Frost from causing trouble, catch him in a magic bubble. A gleaming bubble popped out of the end of Heather's wand. It grew bigger and bigger. It looked as if it was made of pale lilac glass. Jack Frost dared to laugh and stretched out his ice fingers, but before he could do anything, there was a loud fizzing sound. Jack Frost vanished. Rachel blinked. Heather's spell had trapped Jack Frost inside the bubble. He bobbed gently down to the grass. The wicked fairy pressed his hand against the shiny wall and looked furious. Oh, well done, Heather, Fern exclaimed. Quick, everyone, we must get into the pot at the end of the rainbow and magic a rainbow to take us back to Fairyland. Heather urged. Jack Frost still might escape. Rachel and Kirsty held the branches of the willow tree out of the way so that fairies could fly through. Heather's tiny eyebrows shot up as a squirrel skittered down to the willow tree trunk toward the pot. "Who are you?" she asked. "This is Fluffy," said Fern, stroking the squirrel. "He helped me escape from the goblins." "Fluffy and Queenie will have to go back to their homes now," said Sky sadly. "Can't they live with you in Fairyland?" Rachel asked. "No, they have their own homes to go back to," Fern explained. "But we will come and visit them, won't we?" All the fairies nodded, and Saffron wiped away a tiny tear. Fern reached out to give Fluffy one last hug. Her sisters floated around, giving Queenie and Fluffy little kisses and hugs. "Thank you again for all your help," said Ruby. Queenie buzzed goodbye as she flew away. Fluffy gave a farewell flick of his tail, then scampered off. Heather fluttered in front of Rachel and Kirsty. "Would you like to come to Fairyland with us? I'm sure Queen Titania and King Oberon will want to thank you." Rachel and Kirsty nodded eagerly. Heather smiled and waved her wand, sprinkling the girls with purple fairy dust. Kirsty felt herself shrinking. The grass seemed to rush toward her. "Hooray! I'm a fairy again!" she cried. Rachel laughed in delight as wings spun from her shoulders. Just then there was a yell from the giant bubble. Rachel and Kirsty looked round. Jack Frost was looking very scared. His face was bright red, and drops of water ran down her cheeks. He was melting. "Well, he can't stop you getting to Fairyland now," said Kirsty, but Sky's wings dropped. She hovered in air, looking sad. "Without Jack Frost, there will be no seasons. We need his cold and ice to make winter," she pointed out. "No winter," Izzy said, looked shocked. "But I love sledding in the snow and shaking on the frozen river." "Without winter, how can spring follow?" Amber said in a small voice. "What will happen to all the lovely spring flowers?" "And the bees need the flowers to make honey in summer," Saffron said sadly. "After summer, autumn comes. The squirrels find nuts to store for hibernation then," Saffron. "We have to have all the seasons, you see. If we leave Jack Frost in that bubble." The fairies looked upset. Then Heather spoke up. This is all true, but most importantly, I feel sorry for Jack Frost. He looks very frightened." "Heather's right. We have to do something," said Ruby. "But he might cast another spell," Kirsty said. "Even so, we have to help him, don't we?" Amber said firmly, and all the other rainbow fairies agreed. Kirsty felt so proud of them. The kind fairies were being very brave. "I know what to do," Sky whizzed over the giant bubble. She looked very nervous, being so close to Jack Frost, and she whispered her spell so quietly that Rachel and Kirsty couldn't hear the word. A jet of blue fairy dust streamed out of Sky's wand and into the bubble. The dust swirled in a spiral, bigger and bigger, until it filled the whole bubble. Rachel and Kirsty flew over and peered in. The fairy dust had turned into huge crystal snowflakes. The water on Jack Frost's face froze into tiny drops of ice. He had stopped melting. The wind whipped the snow faster, spinning round with Jack Frost in a circle. "Look, he's getting smaller and smaller," Kirsty gasped. She was right. Jack Frost was smaller than a goblin. Then he was smaller than a squirrel. Then they're even smaller than Queenie the bee. Everyone looked from the bubble to Sky and back again. What was going to happened next? With a loud sound pop, the bubble burst, the wind dropped, and the snow vanished. At first, Kirsty thought Jack Frost had completely disappeared. Then she caught sight of a very small glass dome lying on the grass. Inside the dome, there was a tiny figure leaping angry about. It's a snow dome, Kirsty said in amazement, and Jack Frost trapped inside. Time for a rainbow. Hooray for a sky, shouted Rachel. Now Jack Frost can't hurt any of us, and we can take him safely back to Fairyland. She flew over and picked up the sky dome. It felt smooth and cold, and it trembled when Jack Frost leaped out. Bertram called toward Rachel. I will take care of that, Miss Rachel, he said. Rachel was glad to hand over the snow dome. Into the pot, everyone, shouted Izzy. It's time to go back to Fairyland. Yippee, yelled Amber, doing a backflip in midair. Heather waved her wand, and the pot rolled fully upright onto its four short legs. Rachel, Kirsty, and all the fairies flew inside. Bertram the frog climbed in after them. It was a bit of squash, but Rachel and Kirsty were too excited to mind. Ready? Ruby said asked. Her sisters nodded, looking very serious. The 7 rainbow fairies raised their wands. There was a flash of them, like a rainbow-colored firework. A fountain of sparks filled the pot with beautiful, bold colors: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. And the brightest rainbow Rachel and Kirsty had ever seen